Hello and Merry Christmas Eve. Me and Matt are back. How are you?
I am really good, sir. And a Merry Christmas to you all.
Yes, indeed. That
How about
completely, that completely threw me. You know, when you're like, I don't know, because I do so many different shows. You just do you say the same thing every time you come in.
Yeah.
Because I tried to change it, it completely fucks my head up then. But yeah, I'm doing well. I'm doing well, and yeah, hope everyone's had a lovely Christmas and are having a lovely Christmas. It's Christmas Eve.
It is.
And I think this was your pick. And what a terrific pick it is too. It has been something of not necessarily Christmas Eve for us, but certainly Christmas Day. We will watch Scrooged. When did you first see Scrooged?
It's another video job.
Yes. I think mine might have just been on random TV at some point, you know.
That would make sense. Yeah. No, I think I definitely got it from the video shop.
Mm-hmm.
I distinctly remember the poster in the window.
Yeah. Oh, the poster's iconic. I love that poster. I mean,
the tagline as well is like, was it? He's back among the ghosts, and this time it's 3 versus 2 or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's like, wow, they really did lean into that Ghostbusters marketing, didn't they?
Oh, for sure. They really, really did. A terrific movie, though. I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, this is, you know, because you kind of see it and you're like, okay, this is going to be like a super cynical take on Christmas Carol. It's going to be kind of poking fun at it. And then you watch it and you're like, you know, this film is really heartfelt once you've got the Bill Murray-ness.
Yeah.
But the character does still go through the traditional Christmas Carol, not only the story but also the emotion, and you know he does genuinely change for the best by the end of it, and you know it's more heartfelt than I expected going in.
I think some people disagree. Some people find his outburst at the end a bit disingenuous and manic, but I don't. I think it's great.
I don't think so. In the context of the movie, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because in the context of the movie and the journey he's gone through, I still feel like it was heartfelt. It's difficult with Bill Murray though, isn't it? Because Bill Murray's just like such an asshole that you're like, oh, I just can't. You know, anytime he's being sincere, you're like, oh, no, I'm not sure I buy it.
I know. That is a problem, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, the list of people that like will never work with him again is quite extensive.
Well, I think Richard Donner to the day he died would never work with him again.
No,
I think
but he was a lot kinder to Murray than Murray was to him.
Yeah, I think he was kind to him in terms of like he always said, you know, he's a very talented actor, but I know they butted heads massively on this production, and I don't think he ever wanted to work with him again. So yeah, I mean,
like Bill Murray said that he kept saying louder, 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 and he said, I think he was deaf.
Right. I mean. Yeah, he's not I get the impression he's not the easiest man to work with in Hollywood, to say the least.
They clearly both had completely different, you know, visions for what this movie was going to be.
Well, and it kind of feels that way when you watch it.
Yeah. I mean, the writer absolutely disowned the movie. He really thinks it's a piece of shit.
I love it, but I can understand. It does feel like there's two movies in, you know, two very different movies happening in this movie.
Mm-hmm. I really love that it leans more into the love stuff with the love story between, you know, him and Claire.
I think without that, his final speech would feel conceited.
Yeah.
I think that love story absolutely makes this movie. I completely agree.
And I totally want to be stood amongst a crowd that parts and Karen Allen stood there smiling at me. That's why I want that to happen.
Yeah.
Karen Allen is bloody adorable.
She is in this. She is absolutely adorable. So shall we get into it?
Let's do it.
What I would say is like maybe the greatest opening to any Christmas film I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Well, I think first of all, you get the most
Batman Returns fucking opening ever.
Tim Burton, Danny Elfman beginning of any movie ever.
Yeah.
that is like pure Danny Elfman. That tune,
it's
isn't
insane. And a lot of the score of this movie is like, wow, did you even bother scoring it, or did you just rob Batman Returns score and just chuck it in here?
The thing is, around this time, Danny Elfman really did just do.
He did the same thing over and over. Yeah,
he did variations on the same. And the thing is it's great stuff, but
it's fantastic. Wow. But it does feel like you're watching the same movie, and with the snow coming down in the opening of this. And the set and everything about it, it just feels like, oh my god, I'm watching Batman Returns.
So where's the Batmobile?
Yeah. But it quickly, dissolves into like maybe my favorite opening to a Christmas movie ever. We have Santa's workshop and the elves, then Santa's like chastising this elf for going down a slide with a present. It's all very wholesome and fun. And then I don't know, terrorists turn up.
Explosions and I guess they're terrorists.
I don't know. They're just trying to shoot Santa and the elves. But Santa gets an assist from Lee Majors.
I love first of all, Mrs. Claus goes to the cupboard and opens up. It's like all those
gun rack.
like M16s in there.
So good. It's like every movie you see in this movie, like the trailers for stuff, I want to watch all of it.
I know.
They should have made those movies.
And it's so brilliant. Lee Majors, he's carrying Old Painless.
I know.
That is actually Old Painless.
Amazing. It's such a great opening, and especially as a kid, I was a massive $6 Million Man fan. I loved it as a kid. It was like
I had the figure with the eye and the
nice
moving arm and stuff.
Yeah, I
inherited it from my cousin.
That's very cool. I watched it because it was in syndication when I was a kid. It was on all the time, and I used to absolutely adore the $6 Million Man. So when I saw this, I was like, "Oh, that's so cool! It's such a cool because he's like, oh, Lee Majors, the $6 Million Man."
The other one was he was in it must have been around the same time. The Fall Guy.
Yeah, it must have been near this time, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful opening. I can't remember what they call the movie. It's like the night the reindeer died.
The night the reindeer died.
Yeah, it's so good.
And I love the when he turns up and there's like Lee Majors, and
he's like $6 Million Man.
And he says the line about a hill of beans. Is like, okay, where did you steal that from? Casablanca, by any chance?
Yeah.
And then I love that Santa goes, Lee, you've been a very good boy this year. Okay, so the Fall Guy ran from 81 to 86.
Okay.
So yeah,
this is 88. So it's not far removed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Like then you get all the other adverts, like the Guy's Cajun Christmas.
Yeah.
And was it Father Loves Beaver?
Yeah. Oh, it's such an awesome opening. And of course it cuts to a boardroom, and we see that it's actually a television station network. I think it's a network called IBC.
Yeah, IBC.
And we're introduced to Frank, who is a programming executive for the company. And in the typical Ebenezer Scrooge storyline, he's become massively successful and wealthy, but he's cold-hearted, and nobody really likes him. He's very arrogant, and obviously Bill Murray can do arrogance better than anybody. And I love in this shot where you got the board members who are all like really hopeful that they've like done the right thing,
done a good job, yeah.
And I love that he's like looks at them and then he just looks down at this mirror and he's like checking his teeth and like
he opens the job up and smiles, doesn't he, into this mirror, and then closes the drawer and then basically loses his shit with them.
And he's just like, this is absolutely awful, because of course they have.
He wants to see the Scrooge promo, doesn't he? So they show him the Scrooge
and they've
promo.
got this really wholesome Scrooge promo that they've done. And he's just like, wow, that was terrible. And then he
says, we spent 40 million on an old fart. And he says, now I'm going to have to kill all of you.
And of course, he's got his own version for a TV commercial that he thinks they should run.
Which starts with acid rain.
It's like the shot that gets me is the terrorism
like,
when the plane
hell.
just explodes in midair. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And it ends with a nuclear blast.
Yeah. And it's like, this is why you need to know the message of Christmas because of all these horrible things. He says you need to get them in like so that they don't want to miss it at all. They want to completely, you want to grab them so they really want to watch this program. And I have I can't remember what is it Elliot Loudermilk, Bobcat Goldthwait's character. And he's like, they're all sort of like shuffling out, like sweat.
They look like they've just lost the will to live. They're like, God.
They don't look like they're about to like pass out or anything. And Bobcat Goldthwait's character says, "Don't you think because it looked like the Manson family Christmas? Don't you think it was a bit much?"
Yeah.
And he's like, he says something along the lines of, you know what? I'll think about it and I'll get back to you. And he's like, cheerfully leaves the room and is like, "Who is that?" That's Elliot. He's lovely. It's like he's gone. Fire him.
Fucking poor Elliot.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the one character in this movie where you're like, even at the end of the film, that man is broken. Like he's not coming back.
Really gonna quite be the same guy again, is he?
And it's kind of like you got the standard Christmas Carol. He's been mean to this employee, and now he's being kind to him. And in the Christmas Carol, obviously everyone's forgiven. The roast meal and all of that, the turkey. And in this, it's like, hey, you got your job back at double the pay, and he's trying to do the right thing now by Elliot, and it's great. But it's like this man has snapped mentally though. Like he's like he's done. Like it doesn't matter how nice you are to him now. The man has lost his mind. But he's so lovely here. He's like this little timid little guy, and he's just.
It's probably the nicest character Bob Goldthwait's ever played. Actually,
I was thinking that. Actually, he's like a really lovely. He
never plays
guy.
Horrible characters, really, but he always plays slightly odd and twisted characters. But I think this is probably the starters off at least is the most normal character he's played. He
starts off that way and descends from this point. So yeah, like as soon as he's out of the room,
Alfie Woodyard as Grace is amazing as well. I love her.
Oh god,
sort of
she's
Bob
incredible.
Cratchit character.
Yeah, she's absolutely incredible.
Brilliant.
Like long-suffering assistant. Who basically, like, I mean, at one point in a moment, he's like, "Hey, you need to like work tonight," and she's like, "I've got an appointment that I've had booked for a year," and he's like, "If I don't work, you don't work. Like if you don't work, I don't work. We're working. Cancel it." And she's basically we get the impression she's like constantly breaking plans with her son,
family.
With her family, and she's like neglecting her son as a result. I
love that when he says to her like he's gone, and she literally just goes to the phone, picks it up, and says, "Hello, security. Was it number 6 Loudermilk," and that's it. So all she needs to tell the security is number 6 and give a name. They know exactly what to do.
It's a daily occurrence, and he revels in it. Frank revels in it. I mean,
he's got his telescope to watch him be ejected from the building. He's
like 4 minutes is like a record to him. He's like, that's fantastic. Look at how efficient we are at firing people. He's like watching with glee through this telescope as the security guards like escort this poor bloke off the premises.
And one of the things I love as well is the thing that I don't think I've heard it for years, but it's that whole like when they're doing the promo for Scrooge, it's the live by satellite.
Yeah,
that was always a big selling point when we were kids, wasn't it? It was like, oh, it's live by satellite. They're spending lots of money on this.
It's a big deal. And it does get pointed out later because you are just like, what kind of a fucking asshole would do a live show on Christmas Eve? Because even most live shows, I mean, even like New Year's shows are pre-taped usually.
Most of them, yeah.
But of course, it does pretty much, like you said, it's the glitz and glamour of it being live. that they're going for at the expense of everyone who works at the company, who basically has to now work Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
But yes,
I think do we get the Christmas list then? Now it's like
yeah, we do. Yeah,
he gets a towel or a VCR.
Yeah, and this
starts.
Grace
says to him, "What about my bonus?" And she says, "What about me?" And he says, "Oh, you get a towel." And she says, "What about my Christmas bonus?" He says, "Have a face cloth."
Yeah, yeah. Later on, her family's like, "Where's your bonus?" And she's like, "I'm drying my hair with it."
Yeah, I'm using it.
Yeah, this starts the ongoing drink in this movie. He like pours himself huge drinks during this film, and I love that the nearer the end,
the tab he adds gets less and less.
Yes, it does. Yeah, it gets less and less. By the end, he's like literally just a drop of Coke or something.
Yeah. And most of those drops don't even make it to the actual glass.
Yeah. But Frank's boss, Preston, comes into the office because he's got this wonderful idea that everyone owns a cat and everyone owns dogs. And
there are 27 million cats in the world, and there are 48 million dogs.
Yeah,
and we're missing out on the market.
Well, he thinks that in a couple of years, the cats and dogs could be a captive audience. For their show.
Bill Murray's face is amazing.
Oh yeah, he's incredible,
and he keeps glancing at
Grace.
Grace. And
he says to her, "Call the police" when they leave. He's like, "Call the police."
And apparently, I did not know this, but apparently Roku has channels for dogs and cats.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it does.
I did not know that. It does not surprise me in the slightest, but there you go.
No, I mean, what else is Pluto going to do with their time?
Just goes to show that this movie was ahead of its time.
Yeah, well, yeah. Although I will say I always thought the shows and the things like Classic FM for Bonfire Night, I always thought that was really cute, to keep the animals like kind of entertained and keep their mind off the explosions.
Keep them calm.
Yeah. So yeah.
His boss as well. We should mention his boss being played by Robert Mitchum, who, sort of like didn't even want to do the part, but was basically persuaded by actually just meeting Murray. And
it's a tremendous performance.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, Robert Mitchum was always a fantastic actor anyway.
But it doesn't feel like, for a role he didn't want to do, it doesn't feel like he's phoned it in,
No.
He's great performance.
And sometimes around this time when they called in a lot of the older actors, like Mitchum or Douglas or anything like that, sometimes you got the feeling that they really didn't know what movie they were in. They have that sort of, I'm here, I'm acting, but I have no idea
where am I?
I do not know what this is about. He looks like he's completely in on the joke. He knows exactly 100%. What he's doing.
100%. So yeah, as Frank's leaving, we're introduced to Bryce, who's like this fucking Weasley asshole, who basically is after Frank's job, and like he barely hides it, really. I mean, he barely tries to hide it. It's pretty clear.
I mean, it's John Glover, and he
always plays.
He's another one that's made a career out of playing sleazy assholes,
and he's so good at it, though. I mean, I always remember him most from Gremlins 2. Is it Gremlins 2?
Yeah.
Always remember him from Gremlins 2.
The funny thing in that one is he's kind of nice, though, in that one. He's like mental and like, a bit of a sleazebag, but he's actually quite nice.
He's actually quite kind to Billy. It's probably the most redeemable he's been in any film,
Because I mean, he was what was that? There was a really good show that I don't think got a lot of. I think it might have only got one season, and he played the devil.
Oh, nice! That's good casting.
The main character was I think he was like a resurrected spirit, and he was hunting down other demons. And Glover was the devil, and I really liked that series.
That's good casting. I don't know the series.
He played Lionel Luthor in Smallville as well, didn't he? Well, I thought he was really good in that.
He was good in what I've seen of Smallville. Yeah, he was great. But here he is. He is in full sleaze, sycophant mode, and he's tremendous, absolutely tremendous. So Frank's basically been obviously given the task of heading up the live broadcast, which is going to broadcast on Christmas Eve. It's going to be a Christmas Carol, and I can't remember if he visits the set first. I think he visits the set first, doesn't he? Before we meet his mentor.
I can't remember. He sees him in the lift, doesn't he? He comes out of the lift when we first see him.
Bryce.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, sorry, I meant his old mentor, Lou, the corpse.
Oh,
I think he visits the set first, doesn't he? I think he goes to visit the set for Christmas.
Yes.
Christmas Carol. And we get the bit with the health and safety woman, which I absolutely love this bit.
Oh, we get the health and safety woman's after he's met him. I think after he's met the ghost.
Is after, is it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Right. So
I don't know. He goes to the set a couple of times. I'm trying to remember. I only bloody watched it like last night. Again.
Oh yeah, same. Yeah,
which one these fucking things go into?
Yeah, it almost makes me wonder whether we should do this show this way or whether we should just talk about the movie, because we always fuck this up like every time. I think it's very rare that we don't. No. But yeah, so he basically he meets the decomposing corpse of his mentor, who I think they said he died of a heart attack, but
he died of a heart attack on the golf course. Yeah,
but it looks like he's got bullet holes in him as well.
He does after Frank shoots him.
That's true. Actually, maybe it's just the bullet holes from where he was shot by Frank. So yeah, Frank sees him in his office, and
I love the dramatic way he comes in as well, because like he knocks there's a knock at the door, and he opens the door, there's no one there, and he locks it.
Yeah,
and then he walks away, and you get that great sort of like rumbling, and the door sort of like buckling.
Yeah,
and it like completely explodes.
It just blows up. Yeah.
Yeah, and Frank walks in and goes, "Woohoo! That was a good one." Lou.
Lou. Yes, Lou.
Lou Hayward.
Yeah.
Played by John Forsythe, who was another great old actor.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, fantastic. So he basically dropped dead on the golf course. He's got a golf ball lodged in his brain.
Which a mouse pushes out.
Mouse pushes out. And Frank immediately just shoots at him. And then
the noises Bill Murray makes in this movie, he makes so many fucking just like
does,
random
yeah.
And when he's shooting the gun, he's going blam, pow.
Like you do get the impression that for all of his disagreements with Richard Donner, he was clearly having a pretty good time on set.
Yeah,
he looked like he was having fun.
I think Donner basically said that he wasn't used to working with actors who ad-lib, and we all know how much Murray loves to ad-lib.
I don't think you, especially by this point, 88. I mean, like, would you even hire Bill Murray if you didn't want ad-libbing? Like, because by this point,
you'd have thought so.
By this point, you'd be pretty clear on what kind of comedian and what kind of actor Bill Murray is. It's not like he's new on the scene at this point. He's been around a while.
Well, he'd been absent for like 4 years. After Ghostbusters, he just basically moved to France.
But you think of all the films he'd done up to that point, including that movie. Like, what kind of actor he is. You know he's going to ad lib. That's just what he does.
And as he said, you don't really direct him, you just rein him in.
Yeah, kind of. And it does, even in this film, it's the same as Ghostbusters to a lesser extent. But, watching this film, you're like, I think that was ad-libbed. I'm pretty sure that was ad-libbed. You just kind of get that feel every now and again where you're like, yeah. The call the police line, I was like, that was probably ad-libbed. That felt ad-libbed.
Yeah. And I think from what I've read as well, he had a hard time because he was on his own. Yeah. This was his first movie where he didn't have comedy people to riff with, he didn't have, Aykroyd or oh Christ, Egon. What's his bloody, that's annoying.
Harold Ramis.
Ramis. Yeah. So he didn't have anybody to sort of like riff off. He was the main star. So
yeah.
he probably found that harder.
I mean, I think some of the ghosts he has some pretty good riffing with, but obviously they're more scripted.
I think he was friends. He was friends with David Johansen, so I think that's why he got chosen. Because originally, I think it was going to be Joel Kinnaman, was it?
Oh, really?
Comedian? Yeah, it was originally going to be, and I don't know whether something happened or whether he had to pull out or he couldn't make it. So he asked Johansson to step in, which I think is great. He's probably my favorite ghost.
Yeah.
When he does
them. So he basically the corpse effectively. Well, he starts explaining things to him. He says, the three ghosts are gonna come to him over the Christmas period, and Frank tries to kind of like grab him, and effectively Lou just kind of picks him up by the throat.
Well, yeah, he basically says, he's no, it's not real.
Yeah,
it's his fate. He says, you were a legend and stuff. And it's like, yeah, he says, but humanity should have been my what I was about and stuff. And they used it's just slightly altered lines from the Christmas Carol.
It is, and in some points in this movie, you're like. You're like literally a couple of words different, and it would be lines from A Christmas Carol, which I really like about this film, actually. But there's this effect. I mean, I love the intent of this scene, but the effect does not work.
I think the makeup's great though.
Oh no, the makeup's amazing.
The makeup's great, and the arm is fantastic when he picks him up and he pushes him through the window.
Pushes him through the window in kind of like some.
The window's not too bad.
Boy, when Bill Murray's banging on the thin Perspex window, it's very much not glass. But yeah, he kind of dangles him out of the window, and his arm starts kind of breaking off. He
grabs his arm, and his fingers pull the muscle away.
Yeah,
and I love the way he says something along the lines of, Don't drop me. Don't make me look like a suicide.
Yeah, he's like, oh no, they're going to think it's a suicide. Don't drop me. I love that. That's like the thing he's most concerned about.
Yeah, he's not worried about anything because he's just worried about it making it look like it was a suicide.
Yeah. And of course he like gets dropped. His arm breaks and he falls presumably to his death, waking up in an absolute state. And
he lands in his couch, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's kind of like he looks like he was dropped into his couch almost, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he looks over and the phone starts randomly dialing numbers.
Yeah, and of course it dials his ex-girlfriend Claire, and we hear the voicemail, or he hears the voicemail, doesn't he? He hears the voicemail for Claire's number, and he's like freaked right out, and he's not looked at the door, so he assumes the door still exploded and all of it's actually happened. And he's like, well, he sounds like he's having a breakdown on the phone, basically. He's like, I need to speak to you now. Like, I can't. And then he looks up at the door and he realizes, and he's like, well, I still need to speak to you. It's an emergency. I absolutely need to speak to you still.
And I love that he says, he does that, He says, I know it's been, and he looks at his watch, and then he goes,
years.
15 years.
Yeah.
That was the other line that I love from the ghost, is when he's shooting him, and he turns around and he says, shoot at me all you want, Frank, but take it easy on the Bacardi.
yeah, take it easy on the drinks cabinet, please. Yeah. Yeah, so obviously he realizes it was a dream. It was a crazy nightmare.
Yeah,
and that's.
I think we also get a scene around here where we see Grace with
her family,
her little boy coming home, isn't it? Their little Calvin.
Yeah,
she's like carrying him down the steps after getting off the train, and she says that she's been to the doctor, and basically all the doctor said is he doesn't talk. It's like, great.
Yeah, well done. Thank you.
Like $100 just so that you can tell me something that I already knew or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the thing where the whole family's there, and she's in the thing, and you get that bit where she says, oh, where are the other kids? Because they're in the other room decorating the tree. It's like, we don't have a tree.
And this happens every year.
Every year, yeah. And he is cute on that.
Oh, God, he's adorable. And his face makes it, though. His sad little face.
It's it's the whole, not this shit again.
Yeah.
And her mother says, "Oh, he looks even cuter than he did last year."
What Grace is trying to like tell her kids off, but even she is laughing. Yeah. She can't she's like, "Oh, you are adorable." But yeah, Frank heads down to the set of the Christmas Carol where rehearsals are taking place. And he meets I forget what her job is. I think she's like, head of like
health and safety and morals or something. I don't know.
Yeah, like she almost feels like a censor of sorts. Like she's like the studio censor.
Yeah, the thing she brings up, isn't it? It's
the
like
nipples on the dancer.
The nipples on the solid gold dancers.
I love.
Apparently, or like I guess the American equivalent of like Legs and Co.
Yeah. And I love that he's like, oh, the nipples are barely noticeable, and then the two guys that are working there are like,
one of the carpenters goes,
you can barely see him.
You can barely see those nipples, and Frank says, yeah, and these guys are looking really hard.
He's like, yeah, they're looking really hard. And then of course they go to leave, and he's got, one of the guys got a lamppost, like a fake lamppost, which you get the impression is pretty heavy. And he turns around, both of them duck out of the way. She doesn't. He doesn't even warn her. It just hits her straight across the face, and she hits the floor. And he just looks down. And he's like, oh yeah, someone call her a doctor.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the workers are like horrified. They're like, oh my god, call a doctor. Yeah. He just doesn't give a shit.
Just plug this poor woman out.
Yeah. But then he hears a familiar voice.
Yeah.
And of course,
the
old Lumpy, yes. And he turns around, and of course he sees Claire, who's basically come to the set because, well, I guess she thought he might be like topping himself or something based on last night. She's clearly concerned.
That reveal is a fucking awesome reveal, though.
It's
I love
really
that
good.
And she just grins at him, and she's all teeth and freckles. It's amazing. I love Karen Allen.
Yeah, it's a lovely reveal.
And she basically says, he says, "Oh no, it was nothing," and she says, "I know that frightened voice. I know that it was a. You were properly frightened. I know that.
Yeah, she knows him better than he knows himself. Like you can't lie to her. She knows.
She says along the lines of, "Oh, your hair is really short. I've never seen it like this because you look really grown up." It's like,
yeah. Well, we see his hair later, of course. So we When
did he ever? It's like he's always looked grown up. It's just.
Well, yeah, pretty much. Bill Murray's just one of those actors. He's always had kind of an old face,
Yeah.
Or not old, but mature for sure. Like even when he was in his younger roles, he's still like, still looks pretty mature. And in this movie, they make no effort. They're like, give him long hair, that'll work. Like it really doesn't, but fine.
Doesn't make him look any younger in the slightest.
No, he looks pretty much the same.
And then you get that moment where it's like, she's you get that he's talking to her, and then you get that guy, the animal wrangler guy, who comes and goes, "Excuse me, Lumpy," and he like turns round to this guy, and it's like, that's Mr. Cross sort of thing. And he says, "I can't get these."
I know he says I'm new here and I didn't know your name. Yeah. He's like, it's not my fault. I thought your name was Lumpy. I don't know.
I can't get these reindeer or antlers to stay on this mount's head.
Oh, and he's just like, have you tried staples?
It's
like, damn. Now, of course, this is great, though, because we see what Frank is like, and we immediately see what Claire's like, because she's horrified. And for the first viewing, you're like, he's going to pass this off as a joke. But he doesn't.
No.
Because it's like, she's clearly horrified, and you'd expect him to be like, oh, I was only joking, But
his only response is like, "Oh, that's because you're still the same. You still love animals." It's like, yes, of course she does. You maniac.
Yeah. You fucking chaotic evil bastard. Like...
And then you get the dance choreographer calls him to watch the dancers. The dancers are watching, and he goes over to the woman who's led out or sparked out on the floor, and he says to her, he says to the nurse, "Can I move her?" And she says, "No." And he yanks her head to the dancers and says, "See, you can barely see those now that you see it in context."
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's like, "Get her out of here!" And the guy's like, "It's like she's just been told not to move her," and they pretty much yank her up.
Yeah, it's horrendous. Like she's,
woman.
And it's not the end of this poor woman's suffering either.
No. You do get the feeling that she was definitely put there because of somebody really hated one of those people.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
She was definitely put there because of disgruntled people with their whatever it is she is, the sort of health and safety thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Censor, whatever.
Yeah, because they treat her pretty badly in this movie.
Yeah.
The whole way through. I mean, from this alone, she could be like paralyzed or something now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or at least have some sort of brain injury.
Yeah. It's horrendous.
And basically, Claire she gives him her card and says that's where she's been working, and then she sort of slips away.
Yeah.
And then I think, do we get the second ghost now?
Yeah, I think we. So he leaves the set, and
oh no, we get the lunch first, don't we?
Oh yes, the lunch with his boss, Preston. And he's
a slight bag.
Yes, right. Absolutely. And they order drinks. And of course he's kind of talking about how, it's all going to be great. It's all going to, come together wonderfully. But of course, Preston has some, bad news for Frank, as we see Bryce joins them at the table.
Yeah.
And of course, Bryce is now going to be working with Frank. And obviously, Frank knows full well that Bryce is just looking to.
He's just going to take over, isn't he?
His job.
He's probably seen this before.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I love at this table as well is that when they sat down, when the waiter comes over, he removes the knife and fork in front of Preston, and Preston takes a gold set of cutlery from his pocket and wipes them down. It's like, Jesus Christ, he's got a gold cutlery in his pocket.
Just in case. But yeah, they order a drink.
Because they've got it's getting to the time where the ghosts are arriving, so Frank's getting really anxious.
He does. He checks his watch and he's like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah. And then he thinks that Bryce is the ghost, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
He goes, he does that at him, and they're just like staring at him. He's like, "What the fuck is this dude?"
But yeah, so then the waiter brings their drinks, and Frank is horrified to find an eyeball in his drink, and of course he's screaming, and everyone's just looking at him like, what the hell is going on?
He's doing the head nod gesture towards the drink, and the waiter's like looking at it, it's going, "Of course, sir, I'll take it away."
Yeah, and of course, Bryce is fucking, you can see his face is just lit up. He's like, this is like Christmas has come early for him.
He's losing it. I'm a shoo-in here.
Yeah. And of course, then he leaves the lunch.
Well, no, we get that great bit with the guy on fire.
Oh yes, yeah, of course, yeah.
And he says they're ordering. He says, what would you like to eat, sort of thing. And the guy's like, there's a guy with a baked Alaska, and he's just like pointing at him and going, "No, sir, you don't want that. That's a baked Alaska." It's on fire, and you can see the guy like rolling around on fire.
Yeah.
But then when you look back, he's just a guy
yeah.
stood there with a flaming baked Alaska.
Yeah.
And I love he runs up to him and chucks a bucket of ice water over him.
Yeah.
And the poor guy's there like with this money in his hand, like wondering what the fuck happened. And I love it. He says to him, "I thought you were Richard Pryor."
Yeah.
Which is only hilarious if you know the fact that poor Richard Pryor, when he was freebasing, set himself on fire and then basically ran down the road like a busy street on fire.
Yeah,
which is horrifying.
It's horrendous. So, Frank leaves, and as he's leaving, he hails a cab, and one is about to pull up, and another one just pulls right in front, and basically the one behind smashes into it, and so immediately it's like something's not right here.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Clearly older.
We missed the bit from earlier. Oh, we missed the earlier cab scene when he steals the cab from the old lady. I fucking love that scene.
Oh, the bit where
such a good scene.
He's getting the award for fucking humanitarian of the year.
And then he leaves and just steals this old woman. He's like, I think you dropped something, ma'am. She goes to pick it up. He just gets in the cab and swears at her.
Yeah.
So good. But yeah, so of course he just gets in the cab without really thinking about it. And of course this turns out to be the first ghost, the ghost of Christmas past. Well, the first of the three ghosts. Obviously we do have the Lou ghost, but this is the first ghost of Christmas. He's basically like a loudmouth cab driver.
New York cab driver, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like weird pointy ears and sort of he vaguely looks like a grown-up Eddie Munster.
Oh, he kind of does actually, yeah.
Like if Eddie Munster would have let himself go and
got like leprosy or something.
Yeah, and became all New York.
Yeah. So he takes Frank back to his childhood. Back to
he takes
1955.
him on a fucking journey. I mean, they like narrowly miss people. They take out an awning from a building.
It's weird, isn't it? Because those things seem to be happening in real life.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't seem to be just Frank's delusions or Frank's visions. Like
no, those ones particularly.
That's actually happening. Yeah, that's actually happening to the real world. Because most of this movie is like, it looks like Frank's crazy. But in that scene, it's like, oh no, there's actual real world consequences to this cab. I love
it. He takes him to his. He says, "Take me home."
Yeah. So he takes him home to 1955.
Yeah.
We see his mother, and they're watching The Lone Ranger, aren't they?
Yeah, they're watching a number of things, aren't they? They sort of, and I love that he pulls up and he says, "Hey, I thought they pulled this down." He's like, "They did," and he says, "I know how this works." He says, "You're supposed to show me my family, and I'm supposed to be all heartwarmed, and it's supposed to help me." And it's like, yeah. He says, and I can't remember the guy the name he says. He says, yeah. He said the same thing. He says, but when he saw his mum, Niagara Falls. And he does that thing where he goes through the door and when he tries to follow him and just walks into it.
Yeah, and he's like, I love that one. He's like, that's like,
I love
like he does that trick on everyone. It's brilliant. So he shows him his childhood basically, or childhood Christmas, and
this is where you get the what he spent all of his life doing. Basically watching day, which is funny, but also, that's kind of what I did when I was a kid. So,
yeah. But you start to see why Frank has become the way he is.
Yeah, I mean, his dad comes in from working as a butcher, I presume.
He's alcoholic, and he's come back from like a meat packing factory or something.
Chucks that big bit of veal at him. It's like, what? Is it a choo-choo? It's like, no, it's not a choo-choo. It's veal.
Yeah, because Frank really wants a train set. That's what child Frank always wanted. And I
love his dad, which of course is played by his older brother.
Yeah,
Murray's older brother. His dad says, I hear, and Frank, his wife says he's only 4. He's like, I hear excuses all the time for people not working. Yeah. My back hurts. I can't do this. I'm 4.
But yeah, and that argument only starts because his mum basically says you were supposed to go to the toy store.
Yeah.
It's like he's made a mistake by not going to the toy store, and then he just kind of snaps back at them, and he's like, you should buy your own presents.
Yeah. And you get the bit where his mum says, good night, Frankie Angel, walks off, and you see Bill Murray starting to cry.
Yeah.
And the ghost leans in and goes, Niagara Falls, Frankie Angel, Niagara Falls. We also missed another part as well. We missed the bit where he meets his brother comes into the office.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which is, again, played by one of his other brothers.
Mm-hmm. And he's really great in that scene. I actually really like him as his brother in this, because he's trying. And there's a lovely line later on as well, which I guess we'll get to. But he's just, he's like, hey, he's my brother, and he might be an asshole, but he's my brother, and I love him anyway. Yeah. And he's the one that's full of Christmas spirit. Yeah.
Well, he's the nephew, isn't he, from in the Christmas Carol?
Yes. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. But yes, so we see Frank, I think later, in his late teens, starting at the TV station.
Yeah, I guess he's like a runner or something, isn't he? So I'm guessing it was probably late teens, early 20s, even though he doesn't look like that at all.
No. And we see the first time he meets Claire as well.
You get what I love in the party. You get he's at a Christmas party and he's the only one still working, and his boss says to him, "Do you see there's a party going on?" And he says, "Yeah, I'll get on it." And there's that woman photocopying her bum and handing it out, and she's like clearly coming on to him and says, "Would you like to get some Chinese food?" And
the older Frank is horrified.
No, he says you can't get Chinese food. He says, haven't you heard they kill cats and put it in the chow mein?
Mm.
And she's like, oh, completely heartbroken. And Frank's there going, you idiot!
Yeah, old Frank is like,
she's fucking crazy about
insane. You. Yeah. Oh dear. But yeah, we see the Christmas party where he meets Claire for the first time. She
hit the face with the door.
Yes, yeah.
And then that's how we get the Lumpy name.
Yeah.
Because they do that adorable thing with the picking up stuff that they've dropped and hitting each other in the head.
Yeah. I love the line when he says, he's like, "Hey, do you come down this street often? Because I'll use the other side of the road." Yeah,
and that's because she's walking away, isn't she? And that's what sort of makes her turn round, because he asks if she wants to go to a party and she says no, she doesn't,
and he's like, neither do I.
Yeah. And then she says would you like to get some Chinese food?
Yeah.
And he makes that face. And then we go to, I think it's their apartment, isn't it, for Christmas?
Yes, yeah.
And they've obviously been living together for a while, and
they haven't got a lot of money, but they're making the best of what they've got, and they're happy together.
And he's got her Jingsu knives.
Yes.
And she's got him the Kama Sutra.
Yeah.
And I love that there's a line where she says about he says, "Oh, I want to open all the presents," and he says no. He says you're allowed to open one present on Christmas Eve. Didn't your family ever do that? And he says, "Oh, only if it was going to spoil."
Well, and again, his dad worked in a meatpacking factory, so that might not be far from the truth. As much as it's a joke, it might actually be true.
I mean, like he said that when he said, was it when they leave the house and he's talking to the spirit, and he's crying because it was a touching gift, not because of his mother at all.
Yeah.
And he says, that piece of meat would probably cost $40 or $50 these days.
Yeah. And then we again skip forward to I think it's like the early 70s, where he is Frisbee the dog.
Frisbee.
And he basically I think it's Christmas. I guess it's like near Christmas anyway, and they have plans to go to dinner.
Eve.
Yeah, they've got plans.
Because he's basically, his boss comes over and says, "Oh, why don't you and they're going away for this."
Yeah.
meal or something, and he's talking to his secretary or something, isn't it? And he says all about his wife, and he says his wife says, "Oh, your wife's away for Christmas." He says, "Oh, then it'll have to be me and you then." And Frank sort of like is there smiling.
Just smiles, yeah.
And he says, "Oh, you and your Claire should come. Yeah, put them on the list."
Yeah.
And off he goes. And then Claire comes in.
Yeah, Claire comes in and she says, we've got a party with friends tonight. We've we've had arranged this for ages. And he's like, look, Lou Hayward is like massively important. He doesn't have time to make plans like weeks in advance. We can see our friends, next week. And she's like, it won't be Christmas Eve next week. Like, we're seeing them for Christmas. That's the whole point. But obviously Frank is just like, my career is everything. And he chastises her. He has
he says, but what about my needs?
What about me?
The needs of the Frisbee show.
Yeah.
And her little face.
I know.
Like, oh no, don't do that.
Yeah, and she says, well, I obviously didn't realize it meant that much to you.
And she basically says, I think we should probably, take a break for a bit.
Yeah.
And, and he barely notices her as she's walking out, and, she's like slipping away and sort of saying, Merry Christmas and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you can see this is the point in his life where he started to really just
become a dick.
Well, and be all career.
Yeah,
it's his career, and that's all that matters to him. Even though he's dressed up as a stupid fucking dog, like it's more important to him. And obviously, I guess it pays off for him. I mean, he does end up being this exec. So ultimately, it paid off. But obviously, we see the terrible cost of that, which is the loss of Claire.
And his humanity.
And his humanity, yeah. Absolutely.
And I love this bit because he's talking to the ghost that sat in the audience, and the ghost says something to him, and he says, he says, it's all right, because I know what's going on. And he turns around and the ghost is gone, and he's on the television screen, and he goes, what's going on?
Yeah. And you get a nice mirror as well, where his father in the 50s is talking about, everyone working at the meat packing plant or lazy slobs and constantly have excuses to not work, like you said.
Yeah.
And then we see in the 70s, like Frank's, complaining at Claire because her friends don't have, enough connections to get him ahead in work. And, you can see that his father's words really ruled him. It's like, I'm not going to be lazy. I'm just going to work all the time. He's working in the office in the 60s when he starts at the station. He's just all work, no play. And even here, it's like at the expense of his friends, at the expense of his girlfriend, who his one true love. He's like, no, his father really rules him.
We get those brilliant bits when he leaves the house as well. I forgot the bits where he says about the ghost says, you never lived. He said, you spent all your time sat on your ass watching TV. He says garden slugs had more of a life than you did.
Yeah.
And he says, I did things. He says, there was this time when I won this baseball match, and he's like, that was Eddie on the courtship of Eddie's father. It's like, okay. Well, I remember this one time where there was this girl with pigtails, and it's like, you're so sad. Because that was Little House on the Prairie. He's like, it was. And he says, yeah. He goes, was it the Homecoming episode of Little House on the Prairie? He's like, yes, it was the Homecoming episode of Little House on the Prairie.
Oh dear. So yeah, pretty soon, Frank meets the ghost of Christmas Present.
Yeah, well, he's swished back to the thing again, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's like, again, I think is he on the set again? And
yeah, he keeps coming back to the set. You're right. After every ghost, he comes back to the set, doesn't he? And he's kind of he's like acting to everyone else more and more kind of crazed.
Each time he gets more crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course Bryce is like, oh, this is just perfection.
It's like completely into his hands.
Yeah.
And also, while we get this, we get little scenes with poor Poor Elliot. Sorry.
Oh, Elliot's just like his life
every time
is.
You see him, he's got worse and worse. So you get first of all he's chucked out by the guards and he's got this bag of stuff.
And for the first half, he's so nice.
His wife will understand. He's like, my wife will understand because I got fired because it'll be okay.
And he's going through. He's rehearsing the speech, isn't he? Where he's like, "Oh, it's okay, dear. We'll just have to move into a smaller one-room apartment. It'll be fine." He's so meek and like, loving and caring at the start of the movie.
You get that shot of him when he stood on the sidewalk with the brown bag bottle first of all, and he opens it and he sniffs it. He's just about to take a drink, and the cab goes by and splashes him, and it completely disintegrates the bag, and the bottle just drops out of the bottom.
I think that's where he starts to properly lose it, isn't it? That's like the straw that broke the camel's back right there.
And every time it gets worse. It's worse and worse each time.
Yeah, because even when he's been kicked out, he's doing okay, and even at that point he was trying until Bill Murray's cab drives past and gets him soaked, and then he's lost it. Then he's like, oh, snap. But yes, so
do we get the scene where he goes to the shelter first before he meets the ghost?
You might be right, actually, because now he's like convinced he's losing his mind, and also he really does want to see Claire. So he heads there, and he's like ranting and raving the whole way there, walking down the street.
Ranting
in the middle of the street. He's walking down the street like a crazed lunatic. And of course they immediately, because it's a shelter, there's a woman there immediately.
The woman says, "We've got another wild and woolly one."
Yeah, and she gets him a blanket, and she's like, "Oh, I'll look after you. Don't worry, it's okay." He meets some people there. I think they used to work at the station, didn't they, with him?
Oh, really? Right? I didn't know that.
He sits down with like 3 friends.
Well, yeah. Well, there's Herman, and then there's the old couple who were actually a couple in real life.
Yeah.
Now, this is the thing: is they think he's Richard Burton.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is I guess this is like a weird meta joke because Murray had played Burton on a Saturday Night Live sketch, which is, I think, where they've got this idea that he's Richard Burton from.
Right.
So it's like a weird sort of...
a weird world where Bill Murray actually exists.
Yeah. Yeah. And they think he's Richard Burton. So they get him to do a speech from, like, Cleopatra or something. And he just does this really bad impression of Richard Burton. And they're absolutely, like, overjoyed with it.
So,
and
Claire
comes, sees him and she's talking and they get that,
It's like, it starts to go, like, it's almost like he's going to change his ways and make it okay.
It starts off really good, doesn't it? It's going really well, but then, of course...
he can't resist.
The other workers at the shelter, they come over and say, "Oh, we've got a problem. We haven't got any fuses."
And then he's like, goes back into his dad. He becomes his dad.
Turkey,
he's like, lazy,
the turkeys haven't turned up.
Yeah.
And he selfishly wants her attention. He doesn't want to share her with these 2 people.
He suggests firing them, and she's like, "They're volunteers."
Yeah, they're volunteers. You can't fire them. He's like, "Well, she's a big girl. She can do it on herself." It's like, you go to the store and get the fuses and get some turkeys from whatever it is, and they're like horrified by him.
And
that's when he gives the line about always doing things for other people, and you should. He says, all these people, you should scrape them off, Claire. Scrape them off.
Yeah. And he basically storms out.
Yeah.
He loses his shit with these people and then just storms out. Basically,
Herman on the way out asks him for some money, and he says he doesn't have any, sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's a sucker in there. Why don't you go and see her?
Yeah. And then I think, then we're introduced to the second, the Ghost of Christmas Present, who is like a pixie, basically.
The brilliant Carol Kane.
Oh god, she's so good at being like irritating as fuck.
Unhinged.
Yeah, unhinged, but still very childlike and cheerful.
Yeah.
occasionally violent, but
yeah. Apparently, she really couldn't cope with the violence. She apparently
she's really good at it.
Yeah, she's really good at it. And when she grabs his lip, she actually tore it.
Oh my god, really?
She tore his lip. Yeah, they had to close down production for like 2 dadays while his lip recovered.
Well, that probably didn't help her with her violent problems. She was probably like, oh god, now I've actually hurt someone as well. This is even worse.
Because I think the weird thing is, even though she was upset by it, I think she really enjoyed doing it as well. So
she looked like she was having a good time.
Yeah, she's great. And I love that when she says close your eyes to him, and he's like, no, I'm not closing my eyes. And he's like, you have to. And she's like listing off all these wonderful things like misty meadows and mountain dew and all that sort of stuff. And then she blows that like dust on his face, and it like makes that X.
Yeah.
And she just clouts him. Knocks him into the sort of like the next scene, as it were.
Yeah, she literally knocks him into the next scene. You're right. And I forget the order in which these go. But I guess we'll just cover them as we think of them.
I think it's
Grace first, or his brother?
Grace first.
Grace
first.
So yeah, he sees Grace's family and the way she lives, living in poverty, and I think this is where we get the line of like, "What about your bonus?" And she's like, "I'm using it to dry my hair." And he sees that she lives in poverty basically because of him, because of how stingy he is.
Never given her a raise, and we see that Kelvin hasn't spoken since his dad was killed.
Yes, yeah. So we learn the reason. For him not speaking.
Mutism.
Does a much better job than the doctors did of diagnosing him. And then of course we get the wonderful scene with his brother and his brother's family. And the other one of the other guys, that's his other brother as well. So there's 3 of his brothers in this movie. Oh, I didn't realize that was another one.
Yeah.
Oh. I absolutely adore this scene.
I do as well.
There, he because you get the jokes like he gets a VCR, and of course like Frank was like, "You better get a towel." Like, what the fuck?
To be a towel, yeah.
And they even joke. She even says his partner even says like, "Oh, he must have sent the wrong one. Must have been a mistake." And I love the line where I forget the exact words, but she's like, when are you gonna learn? And he's like, never. He's my brother. Yeah. It's like, I'm never going to learn. He's my brother.
He never comes. It's like, yeah, but he's my brother. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I'll never learn. He's my brother.
And I love the thing where she says, "What did you get him this year?" And Carol Kane sticks her fingers in his ears and going, "La la 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 la." And she goes, "I know something you don't know."
She's so irritating, like in the best way. Like she's fantastic. She belongs in like Nightmare, the TV show. She would have been perfect on Nightmare, giving like giving quest details and stuff on Nightmare. So yes, we are.
You get the whole thing with the where Frank knows the answers to the questions.
Yeah, with the Addams Family questions, and
which is again funny because Carol Kane went on to play Grandma in the Addams Family.
Yeah, and also Gilligan's Island, don't we? We get the boat question.
Yeah. The only this movie is the only reason why I know that ship was called the SS
I know, because he's like, everybody knows that. I was like, I didn't know that. I had no idea.
I think I've only ever seen Gilligan's Island about 3 times, 3 episodes of Gilligan's Island. It wasn't really a big thing when I was a kid.
I don't think it was like was it a huge thing over here at all? I mean, I know it was huge in the States, but I don't think it was. Feeling it wasn't so big over here. But yeah, I've probably...
Sure, certainly shown.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because but I don't think it was massively popular.
No, I mean, like you, I think 1 episode maybe in my life. But yeah, where are we? So we then. Sorry, go on. You're gonna.
Yeah, from there it's to poor
Elliot.
Poor Herman.
Oh no! Yes, we see Herman in the sewer. Yes.
Yeah.
He's basically
completely frozen.
Frozen solid. And Frank is
I
like,
like you can see Murray's like humanity sort of coming through here, and he's like, "Come on, Kermit," he goes, "Give me a happy ending here, pal."
Yeah.
He's like, he's like, "Why didn't you stay with Claire? Because you would have been warm, you'd have been fed, because you'd have certainly had a better color."
Yeah, and I don't know whether he there must be some, like, whether there's a little trickery here or what, but they do a very convincingly frozen man. Like, his eyes don't move at all. Like, it's properly, like, they've done a good job. It looks good. And of course he's there holding a pocket watch in his hand, just frozen in the corner of this sewer. And despite how much Frank wants him to kind of wake up and be okay, he's not. He's very much dead. And Frank kind of looks around. He's like, there must be a way out of here. There has to be a way out of here.
Crashes through the door, doesn't he? Yeah. Basically, and ends up on the set of the show again.
Yeah, and he falls into the dancers and stuff, doesn't he? At this point.
Yeah.
So again, he's what's his name? Bryce. Bryce is like loving it, and so
he basically says, "Why don't we take you upstairs?" sort of thing, and you watch the show upstairs and things like that.
And then of course the door opens for the lift, and it's the Ghost of Christmas Future for the show. Of course, he sees it and just starts screaming manically,
losing his shit. The guy in the costume must be like, "What the fuck's happening?"
Yeah, and I love that when he walks off, Grace is like, "He's for the show. He's in the show." And Murray and Frank's just like, "Oh, he's great. Yeah, he's really good." Like, it's like that guy should like get a raise or something. He's got a bright future ahead of him. That guy. So then he
I think we get another scene with Lewis as well, and not Lewis, Elliot, where he's
wandering the streets.
He's gone and got given blood.
Yes, to get some cash.
Get some cash, and as he's leaving, he clearly passes out from the blood loss, and this guy just like nicks his coat and his money.
Yeah. And obviously, he basically after spending all that time on the streets, he ends up storming the office.
Yeah, with a shotgun.
With a double barrel, and he's fully snapped at this point, and he
first of all we get that because Frank's sat at his desk and he's poured that glass of
barely any coke
with the tab that's just gone everywhere, but the glass, I think.
Yeah.
And he sat there, and you get the pictures behind the TV screens behind him, and you see the sort of the death face sort of come into view, and then there's that fucking huge bony hand that comes across and like is just about to grab him. And then that's when Elliot comes in with
storms the office. And he does genuinely try to kill him. Unloads both barrels. He tries to murder Frank.
He's singing Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Yeah, something like that. I can't remember what song he is singing, actually. It might be.
He's making Elmer Fudd jokes.
Yeah. And of course there's this really funny moment where Elliot shoots both barrels, and then Frank runs at him, and Elliot looks terrified.
Yeah,
Elliot's like, "Oh my god, he's going to try and kill me."
He
runs past him, and he's just like, "Oh, okay." And
you should have just if you would have tackled him, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he was just too terrified to actually do anything but run.
He's just like, you've just shot at me with a double barrel shotgun. So of course he runs, and he makes it to the lift where he encounters the Ghost of Christmas Future again, and he thinks, of course, it's the actor, and he's like, "Oh, you're looking good." Yeah. And I love when he's like
that when the thing's sort of like bumping up against him, and he's going, "Hey, back off, big man. That may work on the chicks, but it's not going to work on me."
And I love when he's like, "May I?" And he just looks in, and he just sees like all these faces and people trapped inside of
the trap cells. I love that.
It's a great effect.
Thing as well. It's a really cool little practical effect.
Yeah, it looks absolutely awesome.
Squishy faces, and they're really horrible.
And I love that he's like horrified by it, and then he's like, looks again just to make sure. Oh no, that definitely is happening. And I love the effect on the Ghost of Christmas Future. I love the TV screen in his face and stuff. It's really cool.
Really cool, isn't it?
And obviously it fits the theme of the whole movie, which is about TV. It's like his life is TV, so it makes sense that the Ghost of the Future would be like, you know, a representation of that. Yeah, it's like a constantly flickering image. Yeah. Of like the skull, but also like his face and other actors' faces and things, and sort of like, you know, going past this little thing. So, the Ghost of Christmas Future, basically using the lift now, we go through the lift to see different parts of Frank's future, and we see Calvin is now in a mental hospital. Yep. With Grace there, you know, really with Dutch angled corridors. Yes, yeah, I love all that stuff. That's great. Hey, we did Zardoz. We can do Dutch angles. We're fine. God, yeah. We're fine. So no problem. So Frank's starting to turn at this point. Frank's like, no, I can fix this. Like, I've got money. I can get him out of this. You know, I can get people out of mental hospitals. No problem at all. And we see how Claire has now become cold and uncaring because of Frank's advice, and I think this is probably like the biggest leap this movie makes, that Claire somehow becomes this like cold-hearted bitch because of this. Seem a little off. It's the one that I'm like, really? Not sure I buy that. No, I'm not sure I buy. I mean, it's a funny scene, but I'm not sure I buy. It works. It works for the whole. This is one of the things that will turn Frank. Yes. He sees what she's become, and he loves what she is, even though he thinks she's silly. Yeah. He loves that she likes animals and wants to help people. So that, you know, on that level, it works. But on the actual idea that Claire would suddenly go, you know what, fuck them. Yeah, fuck these kids. They're awful. Yeah, it doesn't quite land for me. But it's a minor thing. Yes, it is. It is. And ultimately, the lift reaches the bottom, doesn't it? It kind of falls out, and I love that shot of the lift just hitting the ground. It just crunches down. It's a really cool shot. And of course, we see that you know, Frank thinks he's turned up at his brother's funeral because he sees his brother's wife, and he's like, you know, I'm sorry. You know, his brother, and then he's, oh no, there he is, and he just sort of, you see him walking along, sort of thing. Yeah. And then of course he's like, oh no, there he is. There's James. And then of course he realizes that you know, it's his funeral. And well, first of all, he said he's like, oh, this is supposed to be me, isn't it? I'm supposed to get something out of this, and then he full on like, oh, it actually is me. It's like, oh God, don't let them burn me. Yeah, and he kind of like feels his body getting burned, doesn't he? Yeah, and then he's in there, and then he's in the coffin. He's in the coffin, yeah. Again, that's a really good interpretation of that scene. It's one of the great things about this movie is that even though it plays fast and loose with some of it, it still has the fundamentals. You're absolutely right. This is what I love about this movie as well. It does tell the story of A Christmas Carol. Yeah. It does, and it does a good job of it. Despite it being very Bill Murray and you know, very alternate, it is still a telling of A Christmas Carol, and it doesn't deviate too far from it, you know? No. So he wakes up back in his office as he begs for a second chance, and then wakes up in his office just as the live broadcast is about to happen. So of course Frank immediately rehires the now insane Elliot. He's like, yes, double your money. Yeah. And basically sends him to hijack the broadcast to make sure that they don't turn it off or stop anything as Frank heads down to the set. You know, at first the you know, he turns up and he starts speaking, and Preston's fucking furious. And Bryce is like, I made I'm done. I've got this in the bag. Like he's ruined his career now. He's out. I'm in. And of course, Preston's wife is like, yeah, stop being, let him talk. It's fine.
He's making sense. Listen to what he's saying.
Yeah, and he basically is quite I don't see. You said people think this is
yeah, no, I think
insincere.
Because this whole bit is him full on ad libbing.
Yeah,
because I don't think they knew how to end it.
Mm.
And the writer hated it. He was like, "What the fuck was that? Was that like some fucking evangelist sort of like thing?"
Right.
And apparently, Donna punched him in the arm and said, "Just let him do it."
Yeah,
sort of thing.
I think it really works.
He must have punched him really hard because apparently he was bruised for about a week afterwards.
Wow.
But yeah, I think he did. That was what that moment. That was clearly the right thing because I think it's a great scene. I mean, this is again when this came out, most of the reviews were really bad. They hated it. I mean,
it's become
Siskel and Ebert really hated it. He said it was a hateful movie, basically.
Siskel and Ebert, I like them sometimes. I agree with them sometimes, but a lot of the times I've differed from their opinions on things. So but
they're certainly wrong about this bloody movie.
Yeah. So yeah, he obviously gives this rousing speech, and
about the one day, the one day of the year where people get to be the person that they think they should be.
And they can be kind to each other.
We're kinder, we're a little more helpful.
Yeah, and he talks about his brother, and he says about the Gilligan's Island answer, and everyone's like, "How the hell did he know that? Like, what the hell?"
And he says, like, it was a mistake, but you were supposed to get a towel.
yeah, he admits everything. He completely confesses everything.
And Clara is watching from the homeless shelter, and I love it. She's like she goes outside and she's like, she calls a taxi, and the ghost of future Christmas past turns up and is like, and she says, "Can you get me to the whatever it is building?" And he says, "What floor?"
Yeah. So he kisses. He notices some mistletoe, doesn't he? And he kisses one of the dancers, and he was like, "Oh, that was."
The law.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, that was great, but." Well, it was okay. It was good, but it's not who I want to kiss.
There's only one really good cat kiss in my life, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, he confesses his love to Claire.
He's talking about doing the position.
Yeah.
He's like twisting himself around because I think we could do that without too much damage.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he obviously Grace is there with her son, and he sees him. He's like, "Have I missed anything? Have I missed anything out?"
Yeah, the kid pulls on his jacket sort of thing, doesn't he? What have I missed, big man?
And we get the Tiny Tim phrase.
Yeah,
he says
because we've seen, and the thing is we've seen the kid watch that twice. So there was when they went to see him, we've seen that they were watching like a black and white version of Christmas Carol, and he saw that bit. And then later on, when he's watching the production that they're doing, he sees this. Was it? What is her name? Is it something written? Isn't it? She was a gymnast. The girl the woman that's playing. Is it Mary Lou? Yeah, Mary Lou Retton.
Mm-hmm.
She says that line as well, and he sees us do that. So he repeats the line, and it's like, of course, obviously it's like, yay, he speaks, sort of thing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like maybe his first words in like however many years. And so obviously then we have Claire rushing to the studio. The Ghost of Christmas Past, as you said, like says which floor and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And they have a romantic kiss, and they all start to sing "Put a Little Love in Your Heart."
Yeah. Which is another one of those. That's another one of those great ones that it's another song that is basically gone on to be a Christmas staple.
Yeah.
has nothing to do with Christmas whatsoever.
No, but it just works.
Yeah, it works perfectly.
You know, it works. Of course, Frank looks up and he sees all of the ghosts along with Lou, who
Herman.
Yeah, and Lou's up there as well, who's no longer rotting away. He's just normal Lou.
Oh yes, of course he is. Yes.
Yeah, he sees all of them, and they're all, they kind of nod at each other, and they're all happy, and then they all vanish. And that was Scrooged.
Yeah.
I honestly, if you want something a bit different, a bit of a different take on the Christmas Carol, but still holding the same spirit and the same message and the same kind of beats, the cliff notes.
I think a lot of the reviewers at the time thought of it as nasty. I think they thought it was too nasty and it was too, and I think maybe it was just genuinely a slightly ahead of its time. Maybe.
Yeah. I think it starts off quite
grew
nasty.
Up with cynical TV and the whole culture of get it now and all that sort of stuff and the way TV things work. Maybe people weren't quite used to it yet. They hadn't quite sunk in, but it's certainly now still resonates. I think
it does, and I think it does. It starts off quite mean spirited and nasty, but that's the intent, and I think by the end.
Yeah,
I think it. He has done the Ebenezer Scrooge arc and become. Yeah, I really like this movie, and I said I would recommend it to anyone that wants something a little bit different, but still kind of keeping with the the key points of a Christmas Carol.
Yeah,
but yeah,
all the performances are great.
I think so.
It's genuinely hilarious. There are so many. Just little, even Murray's little ticks and little asides are just really brilliantly done.
Absolutely, I think it is. It's a really, really wonderful film, and like you said, the cast are superb. Really, no one in this movie was bad in my opinion.
No, at all.
I think it. Every performance was great. I think. The only bit that I have issue with in the plot is the future Claire bit. It's the one bit that's the
only thing that doesn't ring true.
Just doesn't quite work for me. But it's.
I mean, you could see it as it's not real and that it's the ghost sort of tricking him.
Sure. Yeah.
But then that would seem disingenuous, wouldn't it? So.
Yeah, I think so. It wouldn't. I think it. I think it works. That's basically what I'm trying to say. I think
it's a minor turn that kind of needs to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
For him to appreciate that is not how he wants her to be.
Yeah.
He does not want to be this bitter old woman.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. So Scrooged, a wonderful movie. I
mean. Not that I give a damn about Metascore critic.
Oh, no. No.
Its Metascore is 38.
Really?
How is that possible?
Dude, as a horror fan, I pay no attention. In fact, usually if it's got a low score, I'm more intrigued. I'm like, I'll give it a go.
It's probably good.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a great movie.
And like we said, I watch it every year.
Yeah, I think we do. Usually it's like a Christmas Day. Muppets Christmas Carol is our Christmas Eve movie, but Christmas Day I will usually watch Scrooged. Obviously, this year I watched it a little early.
Well, hopefully this year, barring governmental meddling, my nieces are coming down, and hopefully this will be the first year they watch Muppets Christmas Carol.
Oh, they're in for such a treat.
So hopefully that's something that's going to be something I'm really looking forward to this Christmas.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really
cool. Yeah, obviously barring bloody governmental things.
Yeah, well, but yes. That might happen. But we'll see. We'll see. But in any case, have a great Christmas, everybody.
Yeah.
And we'll be back with, I guess we'll do our top 5 movies and things, top 5 things of 2021 when we come
Few
back.
other things are going to sneak in, not movies this year.
Yeah, it's been slim pickings this year, so we'll be back with that. But until then, have a wonderful Christmas, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Merry Christmas.
Bye bye.